At this point, it's time to talk about the most common time signatures you're going to see in a piece. Chapter 12 introduces you to the most common time signatures. We're going to be talking about common time, cut time, 2/4, 3/4, and 6/8 time, and how each time signature has its own set of implied accents. We use time signatures to determine how many beats each note value gets in a piece. So in a standard time signature with 4 as a bottom number, the quarter note is going to be worth 1 beat, the half note is going to be worth 2 beats, and the whole note is worth 4. If you look at this first example, you see there are two numbers. It kind of looks like a fraction, but these aren't actually fractions. The top number will tell you how many beats are going to be in a single measure. The bottom number tells you what note value is worth 1 beat. So if you remember from the previous lecture, we talked about how all these note values are named based on their relationship to the whole note. So a quarter note, you're going to have 4 of those in a single whole note. What that means is, in this particular example, with the 4/4 time signature, it's telling you that the quarter note is going to get 1 beat because there are 4 quarter notes in a whole note. If there was a 2 on the bottom, you'd have to think about what note value is worth 2 beats. Well, that's a half note. So there are 2 half notes in a whole note, so a 4/2 time signature would mean there's going to be 4 half notes in the measure, but the half note is also going to be worth 1 beat. So in the next example, we have 2/4. The 4 still represents a quarter note, so the quarter note is going to be worth 1 beat. The 2 on top tells you there's only going to be 2 beats per measure. It's important to note that time signatures may look like fractions, but they're not actually fractions. If the top number is replaced with the number 1, though, it's possible to figure out the note value that is worth 1 beat. For example, if you change 4/4 to 1/4, you discover that in a 4/4 time signature, the quarter note is worth 1 beat. So that's a little trick you can use. You can simply replace the top number with 1, and then you can figure out what note value is worth a beat. So if you see a 4/8 time signature, replace the 4 on the top with a 1, and you get 1/8. So the 8th note is worth 1 beat. If you see a 2/2 time signature, replace the 2 on top with a 1, and you find that the half note is worth 1 beat. So that's a simple way to figure this out if this is at all confusing at first. Eventually this will become very simple for you, and you'll be able to understand how to count each individual time signature. Time signatures take an abstract concept and turn it into concrete terms. The top and bottom number in a time signature are required to properly interpret the rhythm in a piece. So time signatures have 2 numbers. Once again, the top number simply tells you how many beats are in each measure. The bottom number indicates the total value of each beat. So now we're going to review a few of the most common types of time signatures you're going to see. 4/4 time signature is used so often that we call it common time. So if you ever hear somebody refer to as 4/4 as common time, or if you hear somebody just generically refer to the time signature as common time, it means there's going to be 4 beats in the measure and the quarter note is going to be worth 1 beat. So common time uses a 4 as a top and bottom number. This time signature is often used in a lot of music. Most music that is designated for entertainment use uses the 4/4 time signature. So think of the bottom number as a part of a fraction and change the top number to 1. We talked about this in the previous slide. This results in the fraction 1/4, which tells the musician that the quarter note is held for 1 beat. A musician will hold any quarter note in the music for 1 beat. Since the top number is a 4, this time signature also indicates that there are going to be 4 beats per measure, or in this case, since the bottom number is also a 4, there's going to be 4 quarter notes worth of music in each measure. There is a shorthand for this time signature, and you might see this written either way. You'll either see it written as a 4/4 or a C. If you see a C at the beginning of a piece, it's simply telling you that you're playing in common time and there are 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note is worth 1 beat. In cut time, this is another commonly used time signature. Just like common time, if you change the top number to a 1, you get the fraction 1/2. This tells a musician that the note that is held for 1 beat is a half note. Therefore, any quarter note in the music must be held for half a beat, because the half note is now worth a single beat. As with common time, cut time is also used with a shorthand so that you can easily see the time signature. If you see the C, which would be the common time signature, with a slash right down the middle, that indicates the time signature is going to be 2/2. Another pretty common time signature is 2/4. It's a lot like 4/4, the only difference is there's only going to be 2 beats in each measure. The quarter note is still going to be worth 1 beat, but you're only going to have 2 quarter notes per measure. This time signature is often used in marches, but generally, if you're going to have a march, they're going to write it in cut time. In 3/4 time, there are going to be 3 beats per measure. The quarter note is going to be held for 1 beat, just like 4/4 and 2/4, but this time signature is often used for dance music since it tends to have a strong weak accent structure. And that accent structure occurs on beats 1, 2, and 3. So what this is saying is that in music, the first beat of each measure tends to be strong. That's what an implied accent is. Every time you start a new measure, you're supposed to have a strong start to that measure. So a 3/4 time signature is probably going to be pretty fast, and it might sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can hear how the first beat is the strongest. The next 2 are weaker. In 6/8 time, the 8th note is going to be worth 1 beat, and there are 6 beats per measure. However, 6/8 time is a little bit weird, and because it's performed so fast, the dotted quarter note tends to be used as the main beat. This means that the 8th note actually ends up acting as a subdivision instead of the beat. So here's what I'm trying to explain to you. In a 6/8 time signature, you've got 6 beats in the measure. The 8th note on the bottom represents an 1/8 of a whole note. So the 8th note is going to be worth 1 beat in this particular time signature. So you might think that you count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But that's not how it's actually performed in reality. In reality, they'll group the time signature into 2 sets of 3. So it'll sound more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you'd actually think of it in 2 with 2 beats per measure and 3 sets of 8th notes for each beat, as opposed to 6 beats in a single measure. And if this is at all confusing, it should become more clear when we talk about the difference between simple and compound time signatures in the next chapter. So 6/8 time would be considered a complex time signature because it doesn't act the way we expect it to act, and we'll talk more about that later. A very important concept is something known as an implied accent. When a piece of music is performed, there is an implied accent inherent in each time signature. Certain beats in each time signature will have a stronger emphasis on the notes. This helps to provide a sense of forward motion that propels the piece forward to the next beat. It gives the piece a sense that it has to move forward. The musical style and time period may also determine how the beats in a piece are accented, but most pieces follow standard conventions for determining whether the accent falls in a piece of music. So, in 3/4 time, the accent structure uses the following pattern. strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. You notice how the first beat is accented? It's heavier. Think of a piece of dance music. It often has a 3/4 time. So in 4/4 time, you have a strong, weak, medium, weakest structure. This is a little bit harder to demonstrate, but listen as I tap out a 4/4 time signature. Strong, weak, medium, one, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's subtle. The weak beats tend to sound very similar, but the strongest beat in the measure, the most important part of 4/4 time, is that the first beat is the strongest, and then the third beat is the second strongest. Otherwise, it sounds like 2/2 time or 2/4 time. In 2/2 and 2/4 time, the accent structure uses a strong, weak pattern. So, here's 2/2 time. Compare that to 4/4. The medium beat on the 4/4 time signature is just slightly weaker than the strong beat. And that's why a composer might choose 2/2 time or 2/4 time over 4/4 time. In most cases, the main difference between 2/2 time and 2/4 time is that the 2/2 time is usually reserved for marches. The 2/2 time signature may also imply more connection, which is essentially another way of saying less separation between the beats when playing at a slower tempo. So if you have a 2/4 time signature, you might have a melody or a rhythm that goes da, 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 da. So that was 4 beats, 2 measures of 2/4 time. In 2/2 time, they'd be connected. Da, 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 da. In 6/8 time, the accent structure uses a different pattern. You've got strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, strong. So the first beat in all these time signatures will always be the strongest. In 9/8 time, you have strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak. So it sounds something like this. Strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak. So that's it. In the next chapter, we're going to learn more about how to classify the various time signatures. But make sure you review this chapter, read the textbook, and make sure you understand everything in this chapter before you move on to the next one.